Hi, how are you, Vuk?
Good,
Good.
good. Happy to be here.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you so much for taking your time from your time actually to come to us to the Foundry first episode, because this is really the first episode, and I'm really excited for this interview with you. And just to be frankly with everything is that I'm a bit stressed, but I think with our episode goes on, I think we're gonna go.
The good thing is that I can feel you, because I remember my first episode when I did of the Change Officer podcast, and I always tell the story how I invited a friend because I thought it's going to be easier with a friend, but my friend was a psychotherapist, so he roasted me for 1 hour, and it was the most stressful experience in my life. So after that, everything else was easy.
All right, that's actually good. That's actually a good motivation for me.
I'm not going to do that today.
Okay, that's good. Actually, I'm not putting a pressure on you, so you can be. So basically, just for the audience who just be in the first episode and they're seeing the first video and first podcast. So basically, Vuk is an CEO and founder of Poddster, which is a studio for all the podcasters who are looking to launch their first podcast channel in the region and around the MENA region as well. He is also the managing director for Creative. Am I spelling it right?
It was always a very difficult. So we made this wrong choice at the beginning. We called it creative. It had okay. IT in the beginning, in the middle, but for forever, since 2014, everyone has been calling us creative. So we need to learn to live with it.
That's not an issue. But so basically, just so for us just to understand. So can you tell us more about creative?
Sure. So Creative was the first company that I co-founded with a few friends of mine. We all started basically straight out of college. So we did a bit of hustling throughout the college days, and we clicked. We knew each other well. Veljko and Nemanja actually founded Creative in Serbia, Belgrade, in 2012. And then Veljko, who was always the crazy one out of all of us, decided in 2014 that he's going to spearhead Dubai and set up an office here. And at the time I was graduating, and he was like, hey man, why don't you join me? Let's go to Dubai together. And that's how my whole journey with Creative started. And it's still going. We are present in Dubai, Singapore, Lisbon, and Belgrade. And basically Creative is a technology company that helps early stage startups build the tech side of their business. So we've been building all sorts of different software for previous 10 years. And since 2019, we sort of restructured or shaped ourselves more in a venture builder rather than an agency that we were until that point. So at this stage, what Creative does, if you're an early stage founder, you have an idea, but you don't really have tech background and understanding, or you don't have anyone on your side who can help you with technology part of your business, you would come to us, we would team up, and we would help you with that part of the business.
Oh, that's great, actually. And that's actually quite good to learn about create. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky with let's say with IT company. I'm not. So basically, you moved from the IT company, and then you started Poddster, which is a studio, which is just for the podcast people who are interested in podcasts, who are passionate about podcasts, to launch their first episode, to do all of their episodes and stuff like that. And this was like you have at the moment you have four studios. So
Poddster is a podcast production studio. We have 4 now, building more. Basically, Poddster was born in parallel with Creative in 2019. I mean, actually, it wasn't 2019. Realistically, Poddster was born 2021, but everything started cooking in 2019 because both me and Poddster's co-founder, Ivan, who is a good friend of mine, and he runs a video production company, we were all feeling that, we were both feeling that we need to up our game in Dubai. We've been in Dubai for 6-7 years at a time. And, our personal brands, our exposure of our own business, our networks were not as great. And no matter what we did or no matter where we invested our time, when it comes to marketing activities and positioning yourself, networking, business clubs, and so on, none of that really gave us some crazy results in sense of building our brand name, who we were, how people see us, who do we know in town. And then we came up with the idea of, why don't we start a podcast and use podcast as a platform to connect with different people, explore topics that are of interest and relevant for our businesses, and use that as a sort of a media platform to promote ourselves, to create a lot more content, create some value for the audience, and connect with people that could impact our lives. And that was a really early stage in 2019. And at that time, there were a few shows in Dubai, but not that much. So when we started, we invested in, obviously with Ivan's background in media and video production, the quality of our recordings was at a high level. And then with my tech side, we built a nice website, nice page, nice design. So from the get-go, we went out there strong. And that helped us to land some bigger names on the show and start growing the show. And then 200 episodes in, with a thorough understanding how complicated the process of podcast production is and how much effort you actually need to put in order to have an ongoing show that you are airing weekly, which is from, preparing for the show itself, sourcing the guests, recording, editing that content, extracting micro content, distributing, publishing, promoting. There is really a lot of stuff. We said, why don't we start a business that is going to help? Initially, it was aimed towards corporates and businesses. That is going to help businesses streamline this process, because for an average corporate or even an SME, thinking about starting a podcast is just like, what do we need to do? There's so many things, and none of these things that need to be done for a podcast are under the umbrella specifically of marketing agency or an advertising agency or a PR agency. That's not nobody's job. Producing a podcast is basically nobody's job, and it's very difficult to put all of these departments or agencies to work together to deliver this project. Then we said, why don't we start an agency that is going to be specifically focused only on podcast production? And that's how Poddster was born in the first place. And then soon after we started, a few months in, we recognized that there is actually a massive demand and need for studios. While we were offering, hey, we're going to come to your office, set up the studio, we're going to record everything in one day. All you need to do is give us your host for a few hours. We're going to prepare for guests, record for episodes, produce everything for them, basically distribute. It's going to be a turnkey solution. We thought, why would they want to come to the studio? They have a nice office. They invested in their office. Why don't we just bring cameras to them, bring studio to them and record? But no, everyone was like, hey, do you have a studio? And at the time, we had the studio that we were using for the change officer. And we were like, we have our own studio if you want to use our studio. But why would you use my studio? Isn't it easier if we come to your doorstep? And they were like, no, we'll come. And that's how it all started, slowly. That was 2021, early 2021, I think something around February, March. We made first few bookings in the studio. That was the first studio in Dubai Media City. And then from March till maybe August, we went from 3 bookings to 200 bookings in a month. And at that stage, we realized, hey, this is actually a business that we can grow. But the only way to grow at this scale with this many recordings is if we, implement all of the business and process knowledge that we gathered so far and build really a machine, a proper business, take it seriously from every aspect of this business and then try to scale. And then we invested in building these new facilities in Al Barsha. We're building more now in Dubai. We're working on a few other countries that are going to be disclosed soon. And I think that we managed to remove this barrier to entry for anyone looking to start their own show, because now instead of what we had to do back in the days, get the equipment, get the lights, set up everything every time you want to record. Here is just you walk in, you walk out, you have an episode. And you can focus actually on what matters to you, which is content and your guest and the conversation and so on. So that's like a longer story, a short.
Actually, no, that's actually quite interesting to hear about it, because like I was speaking with you before the episode starts. So basically, because what I felt in today's and in the UAE in specific, you have lots of potential of people who wants to become a podcasters or to become a presenter, a host and stuff like that. But the thing is that they don't have the equipment, or they don't have the space, or they don't have even the budget, basically.
Yeah.
Because production wise, lights, set up the studio, furnitures, even the microphone, even everything that's included in the podcast itself, you're simplifying it for the customers.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, first episode should be about Vuk, basically. First episode. So this is like a starter for me. Just I need to know more. What how did he came back to this idea?
Yeah.
Because of course, just like because this is something, it opens also an opportunities for others.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Because of the complicated production process, very few people reach the stage of their show to actually feel the benefits of running your own show.
Exactly.
Because the proper benefits of running your own show come only after a certain number of episodes and consistency. But because it's very difficult, a lot of people give up in the beginning. They start first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes, which is basically just warming up, but they feel so overwhelmed and they never actually reach the point of owning a show that is giving them the return.
Exactly.
That is just exponential.
Yeah.
The amount of return that I personally gained from running my own show, I'm not sure if there is anything else that can compare to it for what you invest versus what you get. And it's it's strange. Ivan was always telling me about the power of media, but I have examples of people that I know for the fact they haven't listened to any of my episodes in full, 100%. But they kept seeing my face for years and years, talking to all of these founders, investors, CEOs, and like important people. Their perception of me changed without actually getting into the essence of what I talked. It's just all of a sudden they saw me, he's talking to all of these people, he must be doing also something important. And then they copied basically the feel that they have for guests on me. And I always give the example of Oprah. Who was Oprah before starting her own show? I mean, probably she was a very good journalist, but she was not Oprah that she is today.
Yeah.
But over the years, by talking to all of these famous people, she became more famous than all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the power of media. So to feel all of this, plus, you need to, produce a certain number of episodes, have some consistency, and build the audience. Now, because of all of these barriers to entry, not a lot of people manage to feel it.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, and this is one of the topics I would mention also, is that even if you're doing your own startups or entrepreneur or is that you need to have a sense of passion to what you're doing. Don't do it just for just doing. You're free. Your time is free. Let me try this. You can try, but you need to have a sense of passion towards what you're doing. So basically, why I'm doing this. So I'm going basically, I'm going to play soccer, for example. Why you have to do this? Maybe you read a book or something. But there's a reason should be why you want to play soccer. Because
what's driving you,
because it might giving you an edge. Maybe it's like practicing and stuff like that. Maybe you just be some kind of football player. Or just, this is something also similar to entrepreneurships also. Because when you start a startup, you need also to start something to solve an issue that happens on the region. And this is something that I'm quite convinced there's lots of potential here in UAE, Saudi, Kuwait, and the MENA region in specific, because there's lots of startups. And there's also a study done by Magnet in 2022. They said 70% of university graduates, they want to start their own startups. This is a good...
It's a trend as well.
It's a trend also. So something like that. This is something... and you actually, Poddster, they started the bandwagon because you started from here. 2 years later, there's like lots of studios doing the same thing. So you started the band, basically a trend. Basically, people can basically start implementing.
I think we offered the right product to the market at the right time. And it's funny because for years we've been, it's very funny actually. So with creative and the venture builder and all of the people that are involved in the business, and I have a few partners, and then I also worked with people like Ivan, etc., who own other businesses. And for years and years, we've been trying to launch that next big thing, working on idea, working on a product. We developed a few startups, failed miserably, and we always felt like we were either too soon, so you're launching a product that market is not really ready for, or you're too late. You launched when it's already late and market is already saturated. There is another product that is filling in that gap. But we were always chasing that. So we were waking up and, okay, what's the next idea? What's the next idea? What's the next product? Oh, let's work on this. Let's work on that. But Poddster, I never saw it coming. I never had an idea of starting a podcast studio. I mean, if you asked me in 2019 or 18 and told me that you're going to, own a chain of podcast studios, I would be like, man, brick and mortar, seriously? You think that what do you think? I'm a bakery owner? Like, who is going to invest in podcast studios, offices and so on? I was digital and tech and apps and stuff. But then things just happen when it's the right thing, and they happen so organically and they grow so organically that is just beautiful. And I think that happens very often when you're not chasing it. It just comes to your door, knocks and say, hey, like, grab me. And that's what happened with Poddster, literally. And it was the right timing. Beginning of 2021, there was no single studio that was offering what we offered. And we luckily went in strong, managed to position ourselves well, and then continued to build it as a proper business, take care of people and the processes and the service and the quality. And luckily now things are coming together very nicely. But I'm always telling the story about how organically and naturally it happened when, for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing anything. It just came.
Actually, sometimes these ideas comes like a light bulb up of your head. But
what I think is the takeaway: you need to be ready to act.
Exactly.
Because we could have skipped the opportunity and be like, okay, whatever. Like, there might be something there, but I have to admit, we really act fast. We build a website, we position ourselves, we promote it, we grew. The moment we filled the capacity of the first one, we built the second one, we're building the third one. I think you need to be ready to act when the opportunity knocks, because if you don't act, like, that opportunity is going to end up like any other.
Exactly. So now moving from basically understanding what Poddster, what it stands for, and the mission and the vision basically of the studio basically. So now I'm just gonna ask you what how the mission helps you basically to disturbing not the word disturbing, sorry. Disrupting, basically, and the landscape of broadcast region. So you have MENA region in specific, you have North Africa, MENA, Middle East in specific. Because like I mentioned also before the interview happens, is that huge of podcast listeners are based in UAE, Saudi, and they're huge. There's just, you will see them opening a space on X, aka Twitter before. I don't want to. And now they're like, I'm just seeing on Spotify. I'm seeing lots of episodes on YouTube as well. There's like lots of business related. And they're not just only focusing on business, they're focusing on only also life coach. So they're mixing in between all aspects, and even in IT, AI, and stuff like that. They're so being exposed to the content of podcasts, and they're quite actually good listeners as well. They're quite good interactive when they speak. So how this mission helps to disrupt the landscape and changing the landscape of podcasts in the MENA region?
I wouldn't say that we had a mission when we started, to be honest. I mean, things were evolving, and then as we grew and as we spent more time with people who were coming to this space, we realized what the actual purpose of Poddster is.
Yeah.
And funnily, it's actually not about podcasts. It's really about people who are coming to produce content in the studio. Because when I started my show, I used my show as a vehicle to connect and grow with other interesting people that I admired, people that I wanted to learn from. And it's helped me tremendously. And now as I'm sitting in our studio day by day and look at all of the people who are coming to the studio, I actually see same people like me at the time who are all producing their show either for a similar purpose or to help other people with the content that they're producing. And the real power is in the community that is gathered now around the studio. Because studios are a very interesting place, podcast studios in general, if you think about it. And I say that doors of a podcast studio are a filter to, amazing people.
Yeah.
People of influence, people who are smart, knowledgeable. And by design, whoever walks through the door, if you're a host, most likely you're well connected because you recorded, a lot of episodes, a lot of people.
Yeah.
And if you're a guest, you're obviously someone who is just, accomplished in a certain space. So by design, everyone who comes to the studio is an interesting individual. So what we want to build and what we are trying to build and working on, turning our studios as hubs for creators who are coming in here to meet with others and grow together. And then as the output of that, we're producing a lot of content, and that content is valuable for a lot of listeners, but the real value is in the community. Because we understood from the early days that you can never, we did democratize sort of the service. Now, 3 years ago, this would be an expensive game. Now it's relatively affordable, but other followed. Right?
Yeah.
And now you have other podcast studios. And they're offering, similar service. We can never win in the game of who is going to be a better podcast studio because it's pointless. We're going to buy a better camera, then they're going to buy a better camera. We are going to, invest in a better light, they're going to invest in a better light. And that's really not the game. The game is how do you build a studio that is attracting people more because of the community and the values that you're providing them outside of the actual recording. That's why we are trying to partner with as many companies as possible, because after you produced your content with us, what's next? You need to grow. We need to introduce you to the right partners. How do you promote yourself? How do you grow? How do you get sponsors? So this is what we are trying to do. We're trying to gather the community, give them value from the whole ecosystem. And the studio is just a magnet for all of these people to spend time here and grow. And now having this mission, or like the North Star, what we want to become, helps us on daily basis so you don't get confused with what's your priority. Because, day to day, there are a lot of things going on, a lot of decisions to be made. But whenever you are confused, like what's my next move, you always remember what you're trying to build. And when you know that community and people are your priority, then you know also how to line up your decisions and actions.
Actually, yeah, that's true. Actually, because this is also something like even the other podcast. Because look, the studios and stuff like that, like we agree in terms of how it's helpful, how it's also generating more people to be interested, because it's not about also the content, it's about the community you're trying to build, because there's...
Community is key.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to have people who can be part of a bigger picture, basically, looking at the bigger picture. So this is what Poddster is doing at the moment, but that's what also lacks the other. Is that they're just, I have a studio, rent it, this is the price. I'm not going to give you You're gonna hire the photographer, videographer, and stuff like that. I can provide you with a camera, but what's the reason? Then of course, like from my side, I know how to Premiere Pro.
But you don't want to do it. You don't want to waste your time on that, right there.
No, to be honest, I like it. I like it. I genuinely like it. Even like when I do like stuff for clients on even CapCut, for example. This is like a small, like on the phone. So I took a picture or let me animate it through CapCut. So something like that, I can do it. Premiere, After Effects, I like them because they're more up and advanced. So this is something, I like to do also. So of course, this content, some people doesn't like it because at the time, like for me, let me like do it by myself.
Sure.
Learn.
Yeah.
Basically. Then I'll do maybe something else. Maybe I'll have you guys do it for me and stuff because I have tight schedule,
sure,
which you're also providing as well. So I think.
But when you think about it, technology is going to accelerate this process a lot.
Yeah, I'm seeing AI.
And over time, AI is already kicking in. You can, what used to take you 4 hours is taking you 30 minutes now, etc. And it's going to end up at the end not taking you any time. But what will never disappear is the experience that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now.
It's like a two-way communication.
Because I always said, like, I would continue producing and recording my podcast for the rest of my life, regardless of whether I have one viewer, listener, 10 or 10,000, purely because of the experience of having a conversation like the conversation we're having right now. We are in a closed room, lights are out, focused on each other, going deep into conversation immediately. We just met and we're immediately having a very, deep conversation.
Yeah, that's
and that cannot happen anywhere else in life. You're going to meet someone at the event, chit chat, but you're going to go your ways. Very rarely you get immediately so deep in a conversation like in podcasts.
Yeah,
and I think that's what technology can never replace.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something like the podcast is purely for. Is that a deep conversation not for me also to learn, for others also to learn about the way to think, the way to understand, the way to have a communication. It's like you said, actually, it's like something you practice because even in your whole life, you're pitching day by day.
Yeah.
Because you have something you want to reach, so you're doing that. You need to understand humans. You need to understand how they think. You need to understand because God created us not all the same. So basically, created us. Each one have a specific, unique set of goals. Basically, unique set of skills. You're not the same. So that's what makes us so kind of understanding and having a deep conversation in the podcast. Oh, sorry. So now just to understand. So you said about the content and you said how they help to to globalize podcasting in the MENA region. I'm not going to say globalize. I'm going to say more of how they launch and spread out in the MENA region. So how about how the content or how the growth itself of the content and diversification help the podcasting in the MENA region, and how Poddster itself helps to achieve that?
Well, I mean, I think it's well known that penetration of podcasts in the Middle East is, I think, one of the highest in the world. So the number of active podcast listeners is growing at a pace as I don't think anywhere else in the world is growing. And I think that's one of the reasons is driven by the need for content in the region, especially Arabic content that is necessary, and there is a massive demand where supply is not really as great. So I think that one of the biggest opportunities in the podcasting space is to produce content in Arabic, because I think Arabic population in the region is like a couple of hundreds of millions of people, and access to Arabic content is very limited. So the opportunity to produce content in Arabic is massive, because you are immediately entering a massive market. And I think that's one of the factors that is driving this growth.
Yeah, exactly.
what we're seeing in Poddster is, from last year when we had 100 creators maybe, today we have more than 700 creators, and these are all creators of variety of different shows, some in Arabic, some in English, and diversity of them is massive. So I think it's growing, and I think it's just going to continue growing because people are recognizing that the format of a free conversation is finding its path to the audience way easier than traditional media today. Yeah. People connect with individuals. People like to listen to individuals. They trust individuals more.
Yeah.
And as we continue now, evolving, I think the businesses will recognize that, and most of the businesses will start producing their own shows, and individuals as well. There is a funny analogy. They say podcasts are new blogs. You remember how, and even today, when you're working on your website, you have homepage, services,
pages,
team, blah, 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 and you have blog.
Yeah.
And like everyone needs to have a blog.
Yeah.
No matter what the website, everyone needs to have a blog. This is where you are smart. This is where you write smart things. you need to have it on the website. I strongly believe that in the future, and as we evolve, everyone will have a podcast or a video podcast page. Because what is a better way for anyone to get familiarized with your company organization than watching a series of conversations of this kind on a certain topic, on the culture, on your team, and so on. There are multiple benefits. So I think as we grow, it's even going to grow faster.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing lots of companies and stuff like that. They're starting like in the website, like I'm just scrolling down and stuff like that, and I'm seeing podcasts, and they have like a podcast name.
Yeah, we saw.
Yeah, and there's like okay, you want to listen to our podcast? Go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts, go to Google Podcasts. They have like a massive, and then these like companies and stuff like that, they don't like bring someone from outside to do the interview. They're doing it with their own employees, basically, who have like for example, digital transformation. This is something like an interesting topic. I would be interested because, to be honest, I have no clue what's digital transformation.
Sometimes I feel like that as well, although I'm coming from the tech side.
I that's how I feel, like digital transformation. This is a new term for me. Okay, let me read, and then then basically you would understand when there's like a digital transformation officer speaking, explaining, and talking about his role in the company. And this is something also. The podcast is not only helping the entrepreneurs also, or startups, they're helping also to connect and make like a bond with your internal team, basically.
Yeah, there is an interesting example. So one of our first corporate clients was Microsoft.
Yeah.
And we produced for them, I think, more than 10 different shows, 10 different podcasts. I mean, calling it a podcast is an understatement, because what we are producing now is not only a podcast, it's a full show. You get a video, you have audio, you have micro videos, and so on. So we produced more than 10 shows for them. Out of those 10, 7 were internal only, covering the topics that are important for their company culture agenda, and the topics and the values that they wanted to promote internally. Internal success stories, or sustainability talks, CTO talks. So these are all the topics that I want to promote internally, just for their employees, internal audience.
Yeah.
So and then you have most of the banks today coming to the studio and recording the show. That really, like, I think the span now it's picking up. And in a few, I think in 2024, 2025, I think 50% of businesses will be having their own show.
Yeah, exactly. I'm starting to see this pattern. And to be honest, it will be a huge platform for them. So because you want to know more about this organization. Like, for example, I don't want to read about it on the website because the messages are quite similar.
True.
I'm advanced IT company, or I'm the best agency in the UAE. like what makes you different? Maybe the community inside makes you different. Maybe you want new people to join and they like the environment inside. So you need to promote also the environment inside this companies and startups as well, because you want to reach people, you want to learn more about your audience, because the audience, they will care about the products you're providing, but they will care more about how how the environment inside.
True.
So I have lots of names coming on my mind, but there's lots of startups at the moment they're doing this. So now moving from the diversification and the content basically. So now we're moving to the challenges that you faced basically. So you mentioned first that you had the challenges when basically the idea coming through, basically how to implement it, how to basically grow it, to make it like the ideal perfection paint, basically. So what are the challenges that was on the obstacles that you faced to do the Poddster basically?
So I think we faced a few challenges along the way at different stages of the business. Initially, we started off as an agency, which was, hey, we're going to come to your office, we're going to do A to Z from strategy and concept to distribution, etc. And while, as a business model, being an agency can work, being an agency is also very difficult because you need to deal with variety of different projects. The responsibility is very high. Clients hold you accountable for success, whereas your impact on success is limited. Then you with your experience in agency, probably you can vouch for that. And then you add up with a lot of projects, a lot of deadlines and timelines and so on. And when we started in the early days, it started reminding me of creative in the early days that I also didn't like because we were an agency. And I said, look, if we're going to build this, there is no way that I'm going to work on another agency. That was the first pivot when we shifted our gears and went from being an agency to becoming highly accessible studio, because we understood that, all right, if we build a controlled environment where we can continuously or repetitively deliver same or a similar service on scale, we can have a business. We have multiple studios. We are recording in a controlled environment that we understand very well. We are limited to a few services, and we said, let's do recording, editing, post-production, micro content, and distribution. These are the services that we feel we can create a system and the process around that we deliver success by design, not by chance. Because if you are relying your business on chance and human talent and factors that you cannot influence, and people, it's very difficult to influence people, then the success of your business and success of your product and the happiness of your client is also going to be left on chance base. So we said, okay, how can we design the business so that we deliver success and happiness of our customers every time? And that's how we approached building studios, because having a studio that has 50 recordings a month and having a studio that has 500 recordings a month is a completely different beast.
Yeah.
Because when you have 50, you have all the time in the world to prepare for the recording and after the recording to prepare for the next one. But when you're recording back to back every day across 4 studios, delivering success every time becomes the biggest challenge. And this is the challenge that we are continuously working on, how to optimize the process so that we deliver high quality of the product and the service on scale repetitively every time to every customer. So that's like my daily obsession. How can you every day improve the process of delivery by one single thing? Because if you continue doing that for a certain
You'll be
period, no. If you continue improving your business every day for one single thing, over a few years, this will accumulate to 3,000% improvement.
Yeah.
This is how I approach building Poddster. Walking in here every day, working with the team to improve the process of our delivery by at least one single thing a day.
Yeah, I actually agree, because this is what makes businesses different. Because if you're gonna launch something, you need to basically keep going, improve 1%, 2%.
You probably came across Alex Hormozy. He is popular these days. And he said, building businesses or building successful or big businesses, making millions is extremely boring. He says it's super boring because you need to come in every day and work on all of this boring stuff, processes, improvements, sales calls, sales deals. It's just repetitive work. Everyone likes to be at the beginning 0 to 1. Oh, we have an idea, you build a prototype, oh, customers are happy. But then the real success comes after your business is relatively stable and you need to continue working on the same thing over and over and again, over and over again. Nobody likes to do that. Like first day in our new studio was the best day in my life. 10th day was, okay, cool studio. 30th day, I was like, do I really need to go to the studio again? But and that's the reality. That's how it works with any business. You build something, shows success, shows results, then results keep coming every day, and then you just get used to it. And then you're like, let's move on to something else. And then you see a lot of people who switch from one business to another only because they're bored with the business that they're working on. I have a good friend, he just launched a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And I really believe in him and the concept in the coffee shop. And he said, this is amazing, I'm going to set it up, etc. And then I have an idea for something else, not to disclose. I told him, man, why? Why don't you just go and build 10 coffee shops?
Yeah.
Focus on what you know how to do and scale. And the reason why? Because it's boring.
Yeah, exactly. Because this idea is becoming a bit repetitive.
It's repetitive. You continue working on the same thing every day, and the improvements that you're seeing are not exciting you enough.
Exactly. And this is something like if someone is asking me, what's the difference between entrepreneurs and business owners? Business owners, they're quite having similar other brands that they're competing with. And this is something that doesn't make you unique. Basically, you're just going to offer something small different than what makes you better than another. But entrepreneurs and startups is that they solved an issue basically that can solve B2B and B2C as well. And they can do it right immediately. And this is something like what makes entrepreneurs different than business owners. Because business owners, like I said, this is something like for example, an agency. I'm just going to say an agency because I'm coming from an agency. But what makes agencies different than each other? Clients. That's the only thing. That's the only difference. But if I'm an entrepreneur or if I'm a startup, then I'm going to do something different than the usual. I'm going to do something out of the cultural scope, basically. Or something out of the kind, basically. I need to build that. So this is why I like to talk about entrepreneurship and startups, because this is something needs to be highlighted in terms of understanding the difference as well. So speaking of entrepreneurs, so throughout the journey of the industry, basically, of Poddster and stuff like that. So what are basically your advices towards entrepreneurs, startups, from any kind, IT, marketing, from any perspective?
It's I guess it's a big question, and I also don't think that I've been through enough to be in a position to give a lot of advices. I failed more times than I managed to build something, and the things that I managed to build are still not at the level where, I can be confident to give someone advice and tell them, hey, like you should do things like this or like that. My experience and my philosophy of building businesses, I don't know if this is going to make sense or not, but build actual businesses. In the sea of ideas and concepts, startups, there are very few businesses that are being built. And when I say business, I mean there is a problem, there is a solution, you build a solution, you go to market, you validate it, people pay for it, and you start building your business without aiming for, crazy audacious goals, unicorn size deals, changing the world. It's a simple process. You find some problem or something doesn't work, come up with a better solution, test it, validate it, and continue building a business that is actually making money.
Yeah.
And I think that like over the years and in Dubai, I met very few founders that are making money or that are building businesses that are actually, profitable.
Yeah.
And for many years, since I was involved in creative, I always felt that I'm not dreaming or I'm not aiming high enough.
Yeah.
But then at one point I woke up and I said, I don't think that actually that's the problem. I think that I'm just focused on how do you actually build a business. So I don't know. My advice would be, but that again depends. There are people who dream big, and those are the people who are potentially going to make something crazy.
Yeah.
But in in most of the cases they're not, because just a few people manage to do it. And then there are builders. I'm the builder type. I'm simple. I don't go into the meeting with high promises. I don't promise high to the investors. I try to over deliver, and I come in every day building the business step by step. So depends who is listening. I can be someone who is a good advice, and I can be someone who is what is this guy talking about? But I'm keeping it simple.
Well, okay, since you mentioned you're a builder, then I have to move it for the advice as a builder to others, basically.
Yeah.
Because look, builders, entrepreneurs, business owners, they're quite different, but they share some common.
True. But there are entrepreneurs who are visionaries, there are entrepreneurs who are builders. And probably ideal scenario is when you match the two, and you have a visionary and you have a builder, but then you also need to find a way how they work together. If I were to give advice from the building perspective, is approach every part of the business and build a system around it, so you don't have to keep coming back at the same part of your business again and again. If there is a marketing, approach marketing as a system. How do I build a system that is going to be self-controlling, so that when I launch it, I don't need to keep coming back at it to check, is it going well? Is it not going well? There are triggers that are showing you whether it's going well or whether it's not going well.
Yeah.
If there is a person that is responsible, hold that person responsible. Don't micromanage. Don't try to be involved in every part of your business, because you're never going to be able to continue working or building it further. Yeah. I'm obsessed with systems. Even when we started the podcast, the only way for me to actually run it was if I build like a small CRM with 100 steps around every episode, so that I know when I launch the system is going to keep going whether I like it or not. I don't have to be the one pushing it every day, because there are responsibilities, there are triggers, there are automatic events. They just keep pushing the system. And that's how I'm trying to approach the business as well. Because if you try to do everything all the time and be involved in everything, you're never going to have enough time to actually build a business.
Yeah, you will be you're
going to be overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed, exactly. So, but the thing is that it depends on the organization itself, because it depends. If it's a small team, you can micromanage, but if it's a big team and it's a big organization, then you cannot do a micromanage.
But you can always micromanage, but it limits.
It will limit you to a certain
how much you're going to grow. Even in a corporation and big businesses, people are micromanaging, but those are the managers that are not growing.
Yeah, exactly.
I will give you, if we look under the hood of Poddster.
Yeah.
there is a marketing team.
Yeah.
We defined what the marketing strategy is and what the marketing plan is, what are the platforms that we're going to cover.
Yeah.
There are a few teams with there are a few individuals with their responsibilities. They have their own KPIs. They need to deliver on those KPIs. Only if they're not delivering those KPIs, there is a need for us to have a meeting and discuss, what's going wrong and is there anything that needs to be improved. But if there were no KPIs established and responsibilities, regardless of how that marketing campaign looks from a side, you wouldn't know is it performing or not. So you're always going to wake up as an entrepreneur and a business owner, is it performing well or is it not performing well?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If it's a recording in the studio, after every session there is a survey. If something didn't go so well, you're going to fill out the survey and say, hey guys, I'm not happy with this. So there is a trigger that you need to look under the hood.
Yeah.
But if there is no survey, how are you going to know out of 500 recordings if there was something in studio in Media City that didn't go so well? Operator is not going to tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to have a customer that is not happy, that is not going to come back. You also wouldn't notice that he didn't come back. So try to build all of these small, like electric switchboard in apartments. That you have all of these like switches.
Yeah, exactly.
When there is a short circuit, they pop. That's how I'm trying to approach business. How can you create this like switchboard so that if something isn't going so well or isn't going great,
you switch it.
This pops, and then there is an alarm. So we need to look under the hood. And I believe that if you manage to build that and scale that kind of a system, that's the only way to actually build a business, which is not going to drive you crazy and keep you stressed all the time.
Actually, no, that's quite right, to be honest. Because, like I said, micromanagement is not always going to work. But you need to have like an eye, even in a weekly or a monthly basis, just to know understanding what's happening in this and
of course.
Just to understand, have a good brief that what's happening. Then you will realize how important the organization and the structure is good for you, and organizing who you should report to, stuff like that. Because if, for example, I'm an employee, I reported to the CEO, what's the manager is supposed to be there? There's no need for that manager to be there at the moment. So now just to have a look, so you said content creators in the beginning of the interview, basically. So I want to understand, basically, in terms of Poddster, because Poddster helped lots of initiatives, features, content creators to build their content. Who are, from whatever you had, who are your basically top ones that you really liked? It's okay if you don't answer. It's okay. I would understand, because you don't want to take favoritism, basically.
Yeah, the reality is that we have so many shows in the studio, and because of the culture that we are trying to build, we are very close with all of them. We are building very close relationships. So picking a favorite would be similar like we're picking between your kids, which one do you love more. But we really don't take any credit for their success. They are pure owners of their own content and the success that they're achieving. We are trying to position ourselves as someone who is giving them a platform to grow and to remove all of these barriers and hard work around them, and try to surround them with the right partners to help them grow. I wouldn't be able to pick a favorite.
Well, I was trying to get something.
This was a very diplomatic answer.
Yeah, actually, that's actually a good answer. So just because we're reaching to the end, basically, of this episode, so I'm just gonna leave that space to you now, in terms of basically if you would like to add anything to the audience, to mention something that you have experienced before, and of course if they're gonna be interested in podcasting, and entrepreneurship in specific, and this is why I'm trying to focus on the word entrepreneurship, because this is why this whole
This is
show.
the whole idea of the show.
Yeah, exactly. So what like you would like to add to them if they're interested? Like I'm interested in terms of podcasting, and I'm interested in entrepreneurship. So
if you're interested in both, look, I'm in the sea of content that you can find out there. I feel there is a lot of BS, and I'm always afraid to say anything that is going to sound like another BS. So I would say I'm not going to give any advices.
Yeah.
But if anyone felt that anything that I said makes any sense, or feels that I'm the person that they could talk to about entrepreneurship or podcasts, my name is Vuk Zlatarov. You can find me on LinkedIn. We will leave my contact details in the episode description. Feel free to ping me, reach out, and I'll be happy to give any or share my experience. I wouldn't like to give advice, but I'll be happy to share my experience. And then if someone picks up something from it or learns something from it, I'll be happy person.
All right, that's it actually. And I was enjoying every minute of this conversation we had. Thank you so much, Vuk. Thank you for the effort, and thank you for your time today. And I hope people will look up to you. And I will be the first person to look up to win. This is big win to start my own company or own startup. Basically.
Great job with the first episode. We broke the ice.
Okay, that's good.
I wish you another 1,000, and
let's break it 100 then 1,000. So the target is 100. So let's start on that first.
There you go. Good luck with that. Thanks. It was a great conversation. I'm happy that I joined you, and good luck with the show.
All right. Thank you so much.